Okay, welcome to the process. My name is Dr. John Bush. This is our continuation of our 2024 campaign preseason here. Everybody needs their strategy. I was envisioning a war map that will lead me to the victory. At least that's the concept here. If you want to know the depth of what I'm thinking and why I'm going into this, I'm doing a lot of simultaneous studies, data sets, etc., and probably more than you'll know about. And that's how I approach it. That's why it's called my process. Check out ScienceFantasyFootball.com. Check all my stuff out. And podcast, etc., etc. More than 100% of you will even deal with. So the one or two that will actually try to follow this journey, I appreciate it. Okay. But I believe at the end of the road here, which really never ends, you'll be a better fantasy player versus your league mates. That's just something that, given my experience, and that's just, I believe, what's going to happen. Okay, let's continue here. Obviously, check out the previous parts. So I bounce back and forth between looking at the entire round ADP versus the end of the season, actually PPR, average production, right? So you're measuring kind of before and after. Remember, in a draft, we're not talking auction here. In a draft, it's all about beating the consensus, beating the public. You've got to understand this data from my point of view, right? Obviously, if you're winning without listening to me, then of course you're not listening to me. Anyway, here it is. A wide receiver rounds, the average per round, all positions, 15 through 23, and then the totals per round. And as you're probably not surprised, round one is the most valuable, right? If you look at percent-wise, I guess we could pull up the old calculator here. 268 divided by 220 roughly is, so that means it's 21% more points scored from round one than round two. Looks like round 2 and 3 are the same. Then we drop again, rounds 4 and 5, and then we drop again, 6 and 7, drop again, 8, 9, then drop again. And it looks like 10 through 14 are a lot alike. I mean, there's a little bit, 130, I guess, 10 through 12 maybe? No, maybe, okay, we can say 10 to 13, 14 is below that, but it's probably more 13, 14. So you can establish tiers and expectations along the way. Do people know that? Do you think round 2 is more valuable than round 3? Overall, the last 9 years, again, a grand scheme is the answer is no. In fact, last year, 3 got you 4 more points than 2. Okay? But round 1 was plus, 65 points? Goodness. So that's goodness. So realize this data is over the 9 years, so you can take a look at that. So last year was really skewed, round 1 versus round 2 and 3. So I guess there might have been if you looked at 2022, look at 271 last year, 235, but the year before 222. So 220 year 22 was the exception. Okay, that was a really. But look at round 1. So it looks like in 2022, a lot of the round one goodness was stolen, and it ended up in round two. So year 2022 was really strange compared to the preceding years. So we're looking and thinking, and in green are top 30% over 9 years, red bottom 30%, and the mid 40% is not colored here. So just give you an idea of what's what. I like to look at the populations each year. Here it is. And not seeing a lot of dramaticness, anything that just jumps out at me. The box pretty big last year. There's been some years where it's been more condensed, but clearly we've been doing last few years kind of a lot alike in some ways against the whole population. Question I always have is why was last year not like 2016 or even 17? So I wonder. I don't have an answer. I think we just have variability that occurs. Okay, I don't think there's anything we're doing wrong or right. It's just the way it goes. So that should tell you right away any kind of predictions that you have. You could just see at the grand scale. Look at the variation, folks. So it's a big variation in what's going on, and you wouldn't know that from Twitter. Remember, everybody's trying to get you to click on their site. They've got the answer. They don't have the answer. Okay, they think they have the answer, but they don't. Okay, and let's just assume that's not the case. So I don't ever claim to have the answer. If we look at the trends overall, yearly draft trends, ADP and WRs at the end of the season, I just like to track things. Look at 2015, one of the lowest years. If you look at how low, and look at 22 was an extremely interesting year. Look at, if you follow the red trend line here, wow, look at 7, 8, 9, much higher than these other 3 years that I tracked trend lines. Last year, I guess, was orange, drop, same, there's the plateau, drop again, plateau, drop again. So we kind of had more of a stair step. But the red, the blue, and the yellow were more dropping. And then you had maybe some type of plateau. So last year was interesting, its pattern. The interesting was rounds 4, 5, 3, 4, 5 were a lot higher than we've seen. And look at 2022, it was rounds 7, 8, 9. So the last 2 years have been interestingly abnormal, okay, compared to previous years. So how does that help me this year? Everything that I'm doing is just trying to understand the system, okay? We can't see second order effects, okay? So I'm just trying to track primary order or first order effects, and just, it's kind of like, you know, there's something in the room, you just can't see it. And that's how you should draft accordingly. Regardless of how you feel strong about something, you're probably missing something, okay? It's just the way it is. You have to draft. You think your eyes are wide open. I would say maybe one's closed and the other one's squinting, okay? So I like to be a lot more cautious and try to get the depth, and hence the process that I'm doing is because of that, okay? If everything was the same and there was no variation, there would not be any need in doing what I'm doing. None. And that's just not how it is, folks. And don't be tricked and fooled to think otherwise. And the idea that you can wait till the night before your big money draft and somehow stumble into something, you're fooling yourself, right? Look, if you've got a diary and you've made money the last 10 years, great. Then you're not even listening to me because you already think you know everything. So great. For those of us in the real world who know we don't know everything, and in fact, the only advantage we have is we know that. My advantage is I know I don't know. Okay? I don't know what I don't know, but I know I don't know. And every time I do these studies and look at these trends and think about this grand data, that's about all I can really take away is I know I don't know. And that's the best you can do. Okay. So I then looked at the green versus red versus the white. So I'm looking at, say, 3 parts of the pie. I count each year the number in the top, mid, and bottom. Okay, so for instance, in 2015, there were 4 at the top of the 9 years in the top 30%, 6 in the 6 rounds that were in the mid 40%, and 4 at the bottom. So it was 4, 6, 4. Where'd that number come from? Right here. Here is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here is the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the 6 is the white. Okay. So that's where these numbers are coming from here. So if we do a percentile, it's 30%, 43, 30%. Okay. 2016. 17, and so forth. So then I took these numbers and scanned them, and right away, look at the last, say, 2021. Look how high we've been, right? Look at that. We are now in the top 40, 36% or higher last 4 years. Look at the preceding years. We didn't even break 30%. Okay, big difference. Things have changed. In the last 9 years, the last 4 have been really different from the preceding 5. Okay, and notice the bottoms are lower. So we've had a lot more rounds that have been successful than we've seen. So the question I have for me and you is, are we ever going to see something like 2007? Imagine having this profile, thinking you understand it, and then 2017 is our 2024. Look at the failure rate, 50% at the bottom versus 20. Wow, would that change things dramatically? But we haven't seen that kind of great change. Okay, so we're trusting that 2024 will be a lot like the preceding few years. Hope so. But if not, we could be big surprised. I love this data. So here's how that looks like. We graph it out. Top is in green, mid blue, bottom is red. And you look at the overall 9-year trend lines, the bottoms have gone down, right? Notice the tops have gone up, and the mid has pretty much stayed about the same. Okay? So are we getting better? Or, what's going on? Or is there, in other words, are we getting more efficient at drafting? That's that. With all the information given to us, even folks that wake up the day of the draft and done any work, probably using standard information, are going to be fairly competitive. That's just where we're at. So the more information that's out there, the harder it is to find that edge. Okay. Remember, only secret knowledge gives you an advantage, right? and I still warn everybody, especially in these big money leagues, I would think there's secret stuff out there that you didn't even know you don't know. I stay at the bottom and pick off where I'm good at, okay, and make money there, okay. So I would hate to risk a large sum of money against people that I don't know what they're using. You know, imagine going to a fight and not knowing what the weapons are, right? The old knife to the gunfight routine. That worries me if I were to step up and risk a lot of money per each league. Game theory says if you have an advantage, you should spend as little as possible and do as much as possible replicants, right? So that means you go to the casino, take all your money, if you're just going to play roulette or something, put it all red and black, and win or lose, walk out the door, one roll. If you had an advantage in roulette, you should take your bankroll and divide it into small as you can get away with, and bet all night. Just, you know, because you have an advantage with each spin. And you're saying, oh, is that possible? It's been documented, special computer algorithms, etc. There's a couple of books written on where they were able to have an advantage over the roulette wheel. Some interesting gambling work out there. Some hippie physicists did it in the late 70s and whatnot. There were other folks that have done it as well. And again, that's the ones that have written books about it. What don't we know? So anyway, Vegas gets really cranky if you win too much. They will escort you out the door. They want losers. They do not want winners. Okay. So, thought I would flip it a little bit and look across the year, not vertical but horizontal, and look at the data that way, kind of in layers, right? In cake layers from 2015-22 versus draft sector here a little bit. So I like this view as well. Probably should have moved this up a little bit, but so if we look at first 3 rounds, what's been going on? Okay, for the most part, very little failures. In other words, the white sectors are failures now in this quadrant. These rounds 1 and 2. So your first 2 WRP, if you drafted WR, you're going to have solid players. This data would say that, okay? But remember, it's a weekly game, and there's running backs, tight ends, quarterbacks as well to deal with. So there's the trick. If we were just playing a WR-only league, then everybody would put premiums on the first 2 rounds, okay? We would all be fighting for the same small goodies there. The variation comes with all the other. So now you're juggling all the other positions. Do you go WR? Do you go RB, etc., etc.? All the permutations, right? And remember, those theories come and go. And regardless of what people show or say, it may have worked with them, whatever it was. Remember, by random chance, right? Things can work out, right? If you think about, and I think in Fooled by Randomness, Dr. Taleb talks about in the book stop pickers, right? So you have 100 stop pickers, and you judge them based on did they make money in the year. There's going to be, 30% that make money, okay? How many of those were skilled? How many of those were lucky, right? So can you luckily, as a stop picker, just get lucky and make money? Then you follow that cohort. So we now have 30 to follow year 2. So maybe at the end of year 2, it's 30% again, but that would only be 9. How many are lucky? how many are skillful. And again, the third year, if you follow that cohort of 100, notice we're down to 30, and then the third year, we're talking, what, 9? Something like that? Or 3, I guess. So notice after 3, 4, 5, 6 years, ones that are standing are probably not lucky. You filtered the luck out. So on Twitter, people say, well, last year I did this. Okay, what does that mean, really? How about in the last 10 years, I've documented this? How do they document it, right? You don't know, right? I can say anything. Nobody checking on me. There is no method to check on you, right? Unless you're somebody's accountant and you don't know, right? If you go to a horse race, oh, I beat the horses last 20 years. Only their accountant knows for sure because it's something called a W-2G. You have to file. If you make money at the track legally, I mean, you could be illegal, but legally, you have to file if you make money. The government wants their taxes, right? So they tax your money. The money you win at the track is taxed, et cetera, et cetera. You wonder, how many levels of tax do we have to deal with here for the pleasure of losing your money at the racetrack or fantasy football? And if you make too much money at fantasy football, if you take it out, they give you W-2G and you pay taxes on it. So again, that's what saves us, is all the variation. I guess to me, if I was designing a league, I know we're kind of stuck with what we have, but I wonder, could we change to like, okay, draft a rushing RB. So we, based on last year or two, whatever, rushing stats, you can only draft these guys. It's called rushing RB. So RB versus pass catching, PC RBs. So notice with the WRs, you could put slot receivers only, the X guys, the Y guys, etc. So if you really want to get sophisticated and give advantage to folks who, like myself, who would data mine it to death, that would be what would happen. But nobody would want that, because then you're talking a serious amount of money here. But if you want to get deeper, that's the hints and the level that you need to pay attention to. Understand the levels. I don't need to go to the extremes with those subtypes of players, but I'm just saying you could if you wanted, right? Superflex kind of does that, right? So Superflex is an answer. Tight end premium is an answer, that kind of thing. PPR is kind of a premium for pass catchers kind of thing. So there's been little nips and flips on changing drafting strategy and league components there, adding flex and these kind of things. Folks, that only adds to folks who are willing to do the work, right? So think about it. The more crazy it gets, more likely people that work their butt off have a better advantage. Just telling you. So, first 2 rounds, let's look at the trends. Red is rounds 1 to 6 and looking at the different years. And notice the last 2 years, if you follow the reds here, we've had some great last 2 years. If you look at that, look at 2015 was a great WR because it was a sucky RB is why. And we dropped. Boy, that was a lean year. Here we go up, the roller coaster down, and now. So remember 2024, we're drafting like we're in this world, and it never changes. And I just showed you the tricks. So if you think that everything is going to be like it was, somewhere, somehow, there's going to be a surprise. Orange, what is orange? Orange is 19 to 24. So not only did we have great 1 to 6, we had an ecstatic 19 to 24 last year. 7 to 12, it's about the same. It hasn't changed. Green has been weak. I mean, we're doing pretty damn good. Probably the last couple of years have been pretty good, but they haven't had as much a roller coaster. So you can almost make predictions that round 1, there's a lot more variation, and back in round 2, there's a lot of variation. Just look at the moves, right? 7 to 12 hasn't had a lot of variation since 2018. Okay, so this is what this tells me. Round 1 WRs are going to have a lot more variation than 13 to 18. It's a lot steady. So if you want a steady one, no highs and lows, kind of like the bond funds of the stock market, that would be WR 13 to 18. Okay. So let's see how many more. Oh, 26 minutes. Okay, I'm going to stop here. Got to break this up here. I get crazy. I'm going to go through the next couple rounds. Actually, next bunch of rounds here. We'll look at the trends here. So I may start back here again. Okay, come back. Dr. Bush, WR, process, fun stuff, good times.